Back when Half-Life Alyx first launched, a lot of the community was quickly scrambling to attempt to find all that this new software was hiding. The Valve community hadn't had a release of this size in nearly a decade, and because of that, many wanted to know what kinds of unreleased features, characters, and set pieces were removed from the final game. At the start, there was some good progress being made, but with a gnawing feeling of dread over everyone, because it seemed that there wasn't that much to find within the build that was released to the public. Only a few days in, many in the community thought that everything had been found, until my friend Casey told me about a discovery he had made. Within the released build of Half-Life Alyx, there is a file called Read-Only Assets. This is a 24 megabyte file that had unknown purposes to everyone in the community and was largely ignored. However, due to everyone attempting to create their own versions of the Half-Life Alyx tools, people were finding options and features of the engine that were unknown within the playable game, or just by looking through the files. One of these features was the ability for the engine's Asset Explorer, which is part of the Source 2's toolset that displays all available assets in a list for reference, to display the quote read-only assets on top of the assets available within a build. This essentially means that the Source 2 tools will take this read-only asset file and use it to not only display the assets found within the local build of the game, but also display all other assets that have ever interfaced with the engine developing the game before. Now, this was likely used to find and source Valve's internal development server assets, so one could use anything that had been previously developed. Now, obviously, no one outside of Valve's offices would have access to Valve's own development servers, and no, this isn't a video where I'm telling you we found a way into Valve's servers. So it would seem that this file that attempts to pull these unavailable assets is useless. And that would be true if it wasn't for the fact that this read-only file is already so large because it stores all the metadata for every asset ever created or interfaced with Half-Life Alyx's production cycle. And it organizes these assets in the browser as if these assets were actually there. So in simple terms, activating the read-only asset feature in the Half-Life Alyx tools will cause the engine to report 100 times the number of assets available for the engine to use, with all the names, file paths, dependencies, sizes, groups, and many other pieces of information. The only thing missing is the actual asset data. We have hundreds of thousands of references to currently unavailable models, maps, textures, sounds, and every other file type that Valve ever developed with, fully organized within the Half-Life Alyx toolset as if we are connected to Valve's own servers. Now, some may be wondering what the importance of a discovery like this is, as the actual content that we would all want to have access to is not part of this leak. We don't have the maps, the sounds, the materials, etc. However, the organization and naming of each of these references alone gives us a wealth of information on the cut, features, and production history of Half-Life Alyx, including a very detailed look at what the old story before Eric Wolpaw came back to Valve was to include. For example, we have learned through this read-only asset file that the original story of Half-Life Alyx started with a dream sequence involving the G-Man and the Vault. Alyx would then spend a much longer time talking with Eli in his house, referred to as a manor. Russell in a fire station. Remember, at that time, Russell was actually called Laszlo. And with Laszlo, you performed an autopsy on a zombie and then interacted with a group called the Han. All details that I hope to get out soon on this channel. However, Jeff Keighley in his final hours of Half-Life Alyx may beat me to it in a much better way. This is incredibly important. I need to stress this. We don't have access to the files that they're referencing. However, we know the names, file paths, file dependencies, file creation dates, material sizes, material groups, possible animation references, and references to every single map ever developed for Half-Life Alyx, with a list of every entity and asset that is supposed to be seen within those maps, all available right now, just in everybody's build of Half-Life Alyx. This isn't a leak from a private source. This is under everybody's nose right now. I mentioned all of this on a live stream a few weeks back, expecting the news to pick up on the finding. However, they didn't. Valve, however, did. As through the update that brought the Source 2 tools to Half-Life Alyx, this read-only asset file was cut in half and now only shows a handful of empty assets. Obviously, people have the old version of the read-only asset file backed up. I'm not distributing that. However, if you drop the old read-only asset file into your modern build of Half-Life Alyx and change a single option in your gameinfo.gi file, the asset browser, built into the Source 2 tools that just released, will be reporting hundreds of thousands of development materials that you previously would not have been able to see. Again, you don't actually have access to these assets, but again, you have access to all possible information that would be surrounding the actual asset data. And through all of that information, a clear puzzle can be put together of everything that was ever cut from Half-Life Alyx, and hopefully we can use this information to then reverse engineer some stuff and possibly reintroduce some cut features within the code. This is a lot of work, and a lot of this work is not going to be done until after Jeff Keighley releases his final hours, because I don't want to have anybody do anything if Jeff is just going to be releasing something on a more official and polished up level. That said, currently, the cut content of Half-Life Alyx has a working crowbar, a working Alyx watch, photo mode, and the ability to introduce an infinite number of weapons within your weapon wheel. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, all of this work being done with just what is available within the retail build of Half-Life Alyx. This is an incredible time because nothing going on here is actually quote-unquote a leak. It's all just official and being done by just kind of messing with the files that exist. The end goal is to release the ultimate Half-Life Alyx patch, where I want to be able to have just an executable that allows you to play through Half-Life Alyx with the crowbar, any cut weapons, a flashlight button, maybe even a flashlight item that you hold, the old watch, the old gloves, and the old features of the gloves, including the slingshot, which at one point allowed you to fling objects back out in the world, just like the gravity gun. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and there are a lot of hurdles before I am comfortable talking about any of this in any real sense. So if you want to help out, my DMs on Twitter are always open, link down in the description below, or you can talk to anybody in my community on my Discord server, invite link also down in the description below. I'm Tyler McVicker, this is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.